Excellent. Recording in progress, and okay, still people, latecomers. And dear friends, thank you for joining us. Event is organized by Rudolf Steiner branch in Chicago. My name is Andre, and I'm going to be your host for today's workshop. So let me formally introduce our dear speaker, Are Thoresen, who took initiative to be our guide and advisor on the path of Northern initiation. Today we will have second workshop and hopefully new revelations from R and results of his research and spiritual exercise for next 2 months. So we're going to set up next workshop in 2 months from now. Northern path of initiation was described by Rudolf Steiner in his lecture at Helsinki in 1912, April 3rd, GA number 136. This is for your reference. And R, his professional side, R is a doctor of veterinary medicine. He has also studied anthroposophic medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, osteopathy, and agriculture. And since 1981, he has run a private holistic practice in Sandefjord, Norway, for the healing of small animals and horses, as well as people. And R is author of 12, at least, published books. Okay, dear R.
Thank you.
Ready? It's over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, hello everybody. Last time I first must say that this is one of several groups that I work with and instruct in this northern path into the spiritual world. There has been in Norway the last months quite much discussion about the difference between knowledge and path. And this, what I teach here, is definitely a path. Then it is very important that we as anthroposophists go into the spiritual world today, which actually very few do. Because when we enter the spiritual world, we observe all the huge changes that has occurred in the spiritual world the last 100 years. And they are quite many. So if many had gone this path, these changes would have been reported. And only a very few, to my knowledge, report these changes. A very few, like Judith von Halle, Yeshua ben Aharon, some part, Mark Pogachnik, Anna Pogachnik, some changes, but very few report these changes. And that means that very few walk this path. At least that is what it means to me, more logically. And then I underline this difference between knowledge. You can have enormous amounts of knowledge from anthroposophy or other spiritual systems. Still, you do not walk path, you do not enter into the spiritual world. And Rudolf Steiner, he gave at several occasions description how to enter the spiritual world. And as Andrei said in this lecture in Helsinki, he described this so-called northern path into the spiritual world very exactly. But at that time, this path passes the elemental world, go through the elemental world. And at that time, 100 years ago, the elemental world was a kind of dangerous place. It was not open to everybody. That is one of the changes from 100 years ago till today. And today, this path is totally open. We have a study group here in where I live in anthroposophy, where we, for the time being, are reading the chemische alchemic wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. And he also described a path. And that path could be used in his time. And at Steiner's time, you could also use the so-called Michael path. And today you can use actually all paths, 3 paths, both the Nordic part, which goes through the elemental world, the Michael path, and the Rosenkreuz path. But in my opinion and effect, I think that and you might, of course, use all 3 paths, or you can choose one. But as I started to say, if these other paths in American would be open, you would have get reports from the changes. And these reports, it seemed to me, only come after venturing on the northern path. Yes. So in the last workshop, I described this northern path in general terms. Actually, I described only the beginning, how to start this venture into the spiritual world, how to venture this path. And in the other groups, that is only the first time, which sort of looks like a lecture, because there I describe what to do. And then the next meetings is where the participants, which at this stage should have actually quite many of you experiences from the first steps into the spiritual world. And I have then in all the other groups used most time to discuss problems in these or after these first steps. So I today expect actually a conversation, a dialogue, and not a monologue. I will say a little about the common problems that the other groups have experienced. there are two groups in Germany and one in the Camp Hill village here in Norway, where I live very close. And we have this Chicago group, if I might call it that. All paths in the spiritual are 12-fold. All distances are actually 12-fold. So when you walk this path, almost everybody reach a point where they feel a certain fear. And that is always for everybody about 7 or 8 12 paths. Actually, the golden ratio. So you have walking from here to here. So about here, you have this point of fear. As Steiner said, the first counter attack is fear of the spiritual. And almost 99%, they stop at this point where there come 7 or 8 paths, 7 or 8 parts of this 12-part road. And that is, and when you then come to the threshold where you enter the elemental world, there is again 12 levels or 12 parts, not paths, but parts of this path. I hope I pronounce the English American words correct. There are some problems, path and parts. Thank you. So, and there is only one way to come through this fear, and that is by your will. You have to will. It's like you, let's say you are in the forest or the rainforest and you meet a tiger, or in Norway a bear, and then you freeze. You cannot move and you have to use your will to put yourself into activity. You have to use the will to sort of conjure up your courage. So that is the first thing. The second thing, when you have come past this 7-8 mark, is that you start to see the movements of the elemental beings. And at that time, you usually doubt what you see. Is this something I just think I see? The colors are changing, the movements are changing, and so on. And that is the second hindrance for spiritual revelation, that is doubt in the spiritual. Again, what Steiner have described. And when you realize it is real, quite many, they have a feeling of hate towards the spiritual. I will come back to that later, because we start, the first stumbling block is the fear at the 7/12 distance. So then I will ask you, my dear friends or participants in this workshop, who of you have experienced when you fade towards a thing, a plant, a tree, a color, the snow, and so on, have felt this fear at a certain stage before you really enter? That is my question, because that is important to discuss. And that can only be discussed when I get some feedback from you. Please.
Okay, dear friends. Yeah, you know how to raise your electronic hand. So you should just navigate your cursor on reactions, click on it, and click on the bottom raise a hand. Okay. Okay, Leah is first. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you unmute yourself, please. You mute.
Yes, thank you. The fear has definitely been coming up for me, and all of the studies I've done, in all my years of anthroposophy, and hearing that this is a dangerous, it's a dangerous undertaking, and you have to be very, very awake and careful. As I'm doing my exercise with the flame or with the snow, there's a fear that is even holding me back from being courageous enough to do the exercise correctly. I have to say, what am I really doing here? I need to, develop my Christ consciousness more strongly. I need to make my will stronger. I get scared even in traffic in Boston. I'm not very courageous sometimes. So this, I'm really happy that we're talking about this, because that's been, the fear has come up as I look at doing the exercises and thinking, do I really want to enter in? So there's a part of me that holds back because I'm afraid of the first realm when I'm going to be scared. And so I'm really happy that we're talking about this today. Yeah.
And how do you deal with the fear?
I have, let's see, I have been going into my, my own heart and remembering all that we've talked about in these different lectures of yours, these different talks about the solar energy and the azuric beings that are being trapped and made into nasty elemental beings. All of these things, I get back in touch with the fact that I want to serve. And that is what gives me courage, if I have it. If I can find my courage, it comes from knowing that I want to serve. That's what I'm here for. So that's where I can find my strength.
Hmm. And how that dealt with the fear? Have you been able to go further? Or not?
A little bit maybe, but not enough to go through. And then I also doubt what I do see.
Yes.
So it's the second step. But and I think that this is what I've always seen since a child. And I think it's part of my, I think it's, physical. I don't think that it's spiritual, and I toss it aside and I don't think it's anything, but I see shapes, that are swirling, little light shapes, and they're very tiny. And I think that it's just part of my vision.
Yeah.
I did that as a child, looking up at the sky, and I told my mother about it, and she's, what? And she thought something was wrong with me. So I just, pulled back and never said anything again. But it seems like it might be just what I'm seeing.
What sort of swirls do you see? Can you
They're
demonstrate?
little lights. They're little lights that go
Can you
around.
demonstrate the movement?
Yeah, it's around like a little.
It goes
little
like
circles.
this?
Yeah, yeah. Very tiny though, very tiny.
Very tiny, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so I'm still here. Still moving forward.
And have you realized that there is actually nothing to be afraid of?
Then I do realize there's nothing to be afraid of. That's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
It is like in the zoo, you have this tiger and a thick glass between you. And this tiger do this and you get very scared, but there is a glass. There is actually nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Others? Then you must unmute again. If you can unmute.
You'd have to turn your video on.
This here?
Oh, yeah. Who is willing to speak? Okay. Karen?
Yes, thank you, Ari. Can you hear me all right? Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I mean, Andre, thank you. So similar to the woman that just spoke, I don't have the fear come up much. That's much more, that is not the stumbling block too much, but definitely I should say, and these movements. So they go wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. They are green with white lines, tiny, tiny, wiggle, 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 and they're in a certain section of the flame, not the whole flame, but like there's a portal or a door, two-sided. So you can see my hands like this, two-sided with the wick in the center and blue there. But on these two sides where that portal holds up like that, these are green with white. The movement is the white part through the green. And then also those circles, as the woman just described, quite tiny. And honestly, I can't remember for sure whether they went to the right or left, but they are active. And then after staring at those for quite a while, then that comes out towards me. It comes lines coming towards me from that same area, coming like this towards me. In fact, it felt like coming towards my heart, but I can't say for sure. That's the feeling of it.
And what did you do then?
I keep looking.
Because what you say now is totally right. That is what happens when it comes towards you, or you come toward them. That is actually coming into the beings of the third realm of the elemental world. Yes, but what do you do with them?
Yeah, Ari, I don't do anything with them. I just like watching them.
Yes, good.
I mean, I didn't know anything else to do but to sit there and watch it. I'm not sure what else to do, other than that felt kind of nice to have it coming towards me like that in those rays.
Well, what you're going to do, the answer will be that you have to fade further behind, go further. You have to, you have to leave them. You have to go through it and then leave them at that stage. Because there are several stages you have to go through.
Leave them by going into that spot where they're coming out from?
Yeah, and past.
Okay, and past that even.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Because I did that sort of mistake for 50 years. I stayed there and I enjoyed the movement. I enjoyed the color. I enjoyed the movements. I experimented with it. I time traveled through them. You can do that. But my mistake for 50 years was that I didn't go through it. I didn't go further.
Well, can you describe that a little bit more? How to do that? Where the ray is coming out from, I go into?
Yeah, you do the same as you started. You fade into the third realm, and then you have to fade further through the third realm. You do the same.
Going in the direction of them, where they're coming from.
Yeah, straight ahead.
Straight ahead.
Yeah.
All right. And then I would say if there was any fear, it was a fear associated with doubt. Is this really the right thing to do? That's where the fear comes up. It's, am I doing the right thing in terms of what if these azurics come out at me? That kind of thing. But they don't.
That's later. That's later. But you see, you are not fearful. I know. I see that. You are more. The doubt would be your more problem.
Prevalent problem. Yes, that is true. That is absolutely true.
You are brave.
Thank you. Okay.
But that is very important. Then you see, this is the start of a quite long travel. You have to first go to threshold of the elemental world, then you go into the elemental world, then you start to see these movements and so on, and you get they come against you or you come against them. That is more actually like a meeting, and then you have to go through it and go to the next meeting.
Good.
And then you go to the next meeting, and then you go to the next meeting, and then you come to a new threshold, and then you go to the next meeting and next meeting and next meeting and a new threshold. And then you come to the first realm, and there is the etheric.
Uh-huh.
And
So it's
then
a
you,
long ways.
and then you could start to be a little afraid, but it's then you have actually learned that there is nothing to be afraid of.
Well, it's a long ways down the pike, it sounds to me, thank God, that I don't go there that fast.
Is, you see, the elemental world, that is the whole creation. Our whole material cosmos is the elemental world.
Yes.
And that is not just a little cup of tea. It is quite far, it's quite big.
Well, yeah.
So yes, you have to travel far. And you can rest all the time. You can go back into this physical illusion and rest. And then you don't have, and that is for everybody important to hear. You see, you in the physical world, it is, let's say, you are supposed to go through a huge forest. Maybe I said this last time, but I will repeat it. And the first time you go a certain distance, and then you go home and sleep.
Yeah.
The next day you have to go the same distance, and then you can go a little further, and then you go home to sleep. But in the spiritual, it is not like that. You can start on the spot where you stopped last time.
Yeah.
So you go a certain distance, then you go home to sleep. Then you start with at that point, and then you go further, and then you go home to sleep, to rest, because this traveling here is nothing you can do for hours and hours. You can do it, let's say, for 1 hour, but then you really need to rest or sleep, as I call it. But after training, you can stay longer and longer in the spiritual world.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, here's
This is a conversation I sound like. Very, very well. Thank you.
okay, Nancy.
Hello. Hi. So really helpful. Thank you. And just following on the last comment, very similar sense of the color of the light and sort of a circular pattern. And then the 2 rays of light coming out and the sense of it coming into my heart. And then after lingering there for a little while, there a sense of irritation building up. And so I kind of just allowed that irritation to be there. And then the words formed that it was, that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. That was actually what I was going to say. You said it. Steiner said that in 100 years, the only way to Christ is through evil, which is the task of our cultural age, to understand evil. The 5th epoch is to understand evil, and the elemental world is evil. It is the beast we have to go through. The 3rd realm dominated by the Luciferic, and the 2nd realm dominated by the Ahrimanic, and the 1st dominated by the Etheric. So we have to go through the evil. He is totally correct in this, to come into the etheric where Christ can be experienced. So yes, it is the beast, or a beast, or beastly forces, beastly forces maybe. Actually adversarial forces, which you call beast. Bible say often beast of the adversarial forces. Very good. So, and that irritation you feel, I thought I would give a certain parallel. When you go through a town, you know, and then quite soon you meet a person and you stand talking with him or her, and then after a while, and then you just stand there talking and talking, and after a while you have nothing more to talk about. Nice weather today, yeah, much traffic today. And after a while you get a little irritated. There's nothing more to talk about. Or to have a visitor too long time, you know, you get irritated. Can't he leaves? And that is the same. You have to move. And that is what I said to the first two. It is so easy, and that mistake I did myself 50 years. I was stopping. You have to go on. We are supposed to go through this forest or this town or this realm. We can stop in the elemental world. If we want to do in the third, we can do the hygienic occultism, that's healing work. Then we can stop there at a certain point and do that. Or deeper, the mechanical occultism, or the deepest, the eugenic occultism. So we can do work in the elemental world, and we can try to bring Christ into the elemental beings, and there are quite many things we can do. But now our task, our mission is to go through it. And then we later can do things here or there or whenever. But now we are exploring this path into the spiritual. And that is first through the elemental world. Then we come to the guardian of the threshold, and then we come into the etheric world. So this irritation, just the thing you all should do is go on. If you're in a blizzard, you stop, you freeze. You have to go on.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the place where then I say the word Christ, or bring Christ's love into that moment. But I'm not sure if that's the time or place to do that, or whether that's sort of stopping me from moving forward.
It seems that you sort of lose what I call it momentum. You lose sort of momentum and you stop. That is what most do at a certain point. Everybody do that at a certain point. They stop. But the solution is always go on, go deeper, and then you come through. Very good. Thank you again. These conversations gives me very much joy. Yes, others?
Yeah, here is Ellison, New Zealand.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I've seen more is on the edge of the flame is like a serrated edge, and very sort of jagged movements, and very quick, very fast moving, which I find tricky to fade in further through that stage, because I feel like I need to see them longer, I suppose. You know, I've tried different candles. Sometimes the wax is behind them. Other times, I've done it with some melting ice as well, which actually then I saw more sort of very quick flashes of light around the edge of the flame, but further out from the flame, but very quick. And so that was sort of as far, you know, I was aware that I needed to move through and fade into those movements, but because they were so quick, it was, you know, I haven't been able to progress further on that.
Maybe you should then, maybe a flame is too sort of quick for you. Maybe you should then try a plant, something that is, or a tree. It seems that you, yeah, because a flame is almost, I totally agree with you. I think it is too quick for me too. I prefer something much slower. So I understand you, and just try different things. Don't stay with a flame, try different things, but the technique is the same. And the experience is of different speed of these elemental beings. If you remember the fairy tale, Goethe's fairy tale, when he met this flickering flame, they were very fast. They were so try something slower.
Okay. Yeah, I did try clouds one day, and that was quite interesting too.
Yeah, clouds are
Fast,
slower.
yeah, they were fast-moving clouds, so you could see that they were disappearing physically. So
yeah, what did you tell about the clouds?
that was probably maybe the fifth day of practicing this technique. So you know, I was just out walking and felt called to actually just stop and lie on the grass and look up at the clouds. And I mean, I didn't see, well, maybe I did, yeah, probably doubt. Maybe
Yeah.
I saw something, but I'm not really sure.
Okay.
So I will go back to that. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Try big trees, or clouds, or melting snow, which you don't have in New Zealand just now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Andre? Some more hands? Have everybody frozen?
I think Honzal has raised her hand.
Yes. So Aria, I want to share my experience. I actually joined your lecture last summer in Spring Valley, New York, and also you introduced us this fading away technique. So but I feel like I stuck somewhere. Especially when I look at the blue sky, I did see some kind of this dark blob or something, but really like the willow cat king kind of fluttering in the air, or some smoke-like things movement. And I just couldn't go further. But my child, she's 8-year-old, and she also looked at the sky, and she told me what she saw. She saw the kind of the white circle at the beginning. White circle can do some eurythmic movement, and then she saw 2 auspicious clouds appear in front of her. At the beginning, the kind of clouds is a little kind of light gray, but then it turned to the all kinds of color, and also the color changes. So I don't know why I'm just stuck looking, only see some willow cat king like movements without going further. Do you think I'm in the right direction, or is there something wrong with my way?
Can you try to fade? You see behind you on your right side, there is a paper on the hanging there on the on your locker there.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you now try to fade into that? And I can watch you a little. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So you fade into, you turn around, you fade into it.
Fade into the picture, right?
Yeah, that, yes. You can come back. That's a very unusual, actually, thing. You see, you passes the 7th, 8th with no problem, but you stop around 10. You stop just before the threshold.
Okay.
You have just a little left, and there you stop. Totally stop. Why you do it, I do not know. But there is, you haven't actually reached it yet. You are almost there, and you probably observe some things, but you have to push a little. You have to use a little push.
How can I do that?
It's almost like, let's say you are afraid of a spider. I am afraid of spiders, big spiders at least. So if I am to touch a spider, I can go 5 centimeters away and then it stops. I cannot. But then I have to push myself to do it. I cannot describe it better than that. You have to give yourself a push.
Okay.
You can do it by, you know what they do in Zen Buddhism? They give people a little nudge in the back of the head.
Mm-hmm.
You can do boop, and then you jump a little further, and then you can be there.
Okay.
But you stop just in front.
Mm. And also, I also want to ask you about my daughter, because she could see so many things, just what I mentioned before. And also when she looked at the candle, she told me she could see the fire fairies dancing in the candle. And also she could feel the enormous kind of the angel wings wrapping her. And also when she also could see the angels kind of hand in hand in the kind of in my this part in kind of the middle part of mine, but I don't know why. She told me, Mom, I don't want to see them.
No,
And
I
gradually,
understand that. I understand that. As a children, often don't, because they don't have sort of this, we have a mission, we want to go into the spiritual world.
mm-hmm.
We know that it's important to save the world and so on and so on and so on. Children don't see it that way. And it alienates them from friends. You know, they get mobbed or whatever. We are past that stage. So you can tell her not to tell anybody, but just keep it for herself until she gets about 20 or something.
Okay. And she also mentioned, Mom, right now I couldn't see them. So I don't know if she really couldn't see or she just don't want to see.
Yeah. No, children have a certain aversion against it. When they're very small, they can do it. But when they get, let's say 8, 9, 10, then they want to be like everybody else, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So tell her that she can train, but keep it to herself.
Okay.
I didn't mention it to anybody until I was 30.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, here's hand from Nicholas.
Hi. This is my, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
This is my first time in the group, but I did take a look at your earlier video about concentrating on certain elemental forms, such as the green of the grass. My common occurrence over the last 5-6 years is always, it's the same motif. It's always lush vegetation, green trees, totally spontaneous, because I usually, it's like, it's that feeling that you get when you know that you're not doing it, that it's sustaining itself. But I go through this period of like, of just being delighted that it's there, and sometimes almost wanting to tear up a little bit. I always thought it was an etheric thing, because the whole plant etheric thing, but then sometimes it alternates with sunset motifs. Not the sunset as much as the dusk. Very, very vivid silhouette outlines, and usually the vegetation plays a motif in it. Also, the feeling that I get at certain points is that I'm able to get to something, like I can almost grab, I can almost apprehend the next stage, like it's right there. And there's always something that I can't do, because I pull back, and I always thought it was like a will thing. I always thought it was a will thing. And I was wondering if you could possibly speak to that.
Yeah, it is a will thing. And when you say that you always pull back, that was what I actually was thought about saying to you when you had spoken. That I thought that this is, you are pulling back. You see, when you come to this, most people then stop and look. And then they pull back, or they stand there and look. Like I said to the first one today, you have to then go on.
Yes, because I mean, they're just so panoramic and mesmerizing. It's just,
Yes.
it's the aesthetic beauty of it that you want to just kind of,
Most get
and that
mesmerized.
feeling of gladness.
Yes. It's like crossing a street. You cannot just look at the cars, and you have to walk out. You have to cross. You have to go in. And that is the important thing with this. This is a path into the spiritual world, to the highest levels when you come there. But you have to start by passing the elemental world. And then you cannot stop. You have to, as I said several times, I stopped for 50 years, but then I realized you have to go through. And that is what you have to do. Just don't stop. You can watch, but actually pass on.
I'm just wondering about the mechanics of it. You know, I'm just wondering, like, what is it? What is it that I need to work on to get my will to a place? Is it a fear thing? Is it a will thing? Is it a combination?
Well, it is both a fear and a doubt and a hate and a will thing. So yes, you just have to continue. You have to, like you swim, you cannot stop swimming, then you sink. You have to continue when you swim. That's a good picture. I haven't thought about that. Swimming is very much like that. You have to continue. Or bicycling, you have to continue to. If you stop, you fall.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So, dear friends, anything else? Who would like to share this experience? Okay, there are, I think we're ready for...
Raven has raised her hand.
Oh, who? Okay. Raven. Hi. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So I'm new at this, Ari. I listened to the recording that got sent out. I'm not sure how it got sent to me, but I listened to it last week. So I started to do the exercises. And I do want to say, like, I probably did too much because I got so tired. I was really, really tired. But then I did rest and I had the best sleep ever after I finally just let myself rest. But so I did first the candle, and the first time, it took a while, but then it was like this, there was this feeling of like that there was a little being that wanted to embrace me and just told me that I needed to practice connection and
Needed to what?
practice connection and affection.
Uh-huh.
And so that was the end of that one. And then the next day I did it again. And that day there were little, they to me looked like gnomes, but they had on green hat and red coat. And then it switched to red hat and green coat.
Where do you live?
I live on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. It's in South Dakota. It's in the middle of the country. It's, we have a lot of snow and a lot of nature here.
Mhm.
So then the second time they came back again, and they said that we're here, come in. And then a straight line came, and the straight line came to me and it said, just come through the door. And that was as far as I went that day. And then the next day I tried to do some with the snow, and then I saw all these things just coming towards me, like a lot of them just coming towards, and then I stopped. And that was the day I got really tired, and I took a nap. And then I went back to the flame and I saw these, I actually drew a picture these things here. So one was orange and one was green, and they were moving. And then I think that, so I looked at them for a while, and then I thought they were a reflection from the sun. And then I just got this like jubilation of feeling like, oh, like we think the sun is way up there, but it's like right here, reflecting in the candle. And that was the end of that. Then the next day I did the candle again, and it was kind of the same things, but then at the end there was this look of, and this could all be, I don't know, physiological, I don't know, but there was this being that came above the candle, and you can't see it, but he had this purple like radiations all over and a blue body. And all I could do is just look, and it didn't seem to say anything or tell me anything. I just looked, and that was the end. So, and that's the extent of my experience so far.
Thank you. And that is so true what you say, because when you have gone into this elemental world, you get very tired in the beginning. That is, for example, after 5 o'clock, it is almost impossible to do these things. You get exhausted because this is so different from what you usually do, and you have a problem in keeping your energy, so you sort of lose this energy until you have a movement. And you did actually what I told several already. When you see them, you stop. You don't go past, through. And that is the exercise for the next 2 months for all of you. At least those who can describe it like you did now. You were definitely in the third realm of the elemental world, definitely. And there you have just to pass through, passing through. sometime happy, sometime blue. Leonard Cohen again. So that is what you must do. You are maybe come furthest into the third realm, all those who have been speaking now. One has been almost there. Few have been over the threshold and a little in, and you are definitely in. But all of you, it's the same. You have to not stop. That is the main, if you pass a road, you must not stop, then you get run over. You must walk on, especially in some countries. If you stop, you are killed. Okay, yes, there are a few more hands. Was that okay for you? You have to continue. You have to go past these with the red or green hats or this. You have to go past, behind, go on, leave them and go further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very, very interesting to hear you next time.
Mhm. Yeah, looks like Herman is next. Herman?
Hi, Ari.
Hi.
I haven't had much success with flames, but I'm listening to other people's experiences, and I'm just remembering that in the past, when I've kind of sat down quietly, and then I'm looking at the ground starts to like shimmer. Is that on the right track, or is that something completely different?
The ground started to shimmer.
Yeah, it's almost like it's water-like.
Oh, to move.
It moves, yeah, kind of
Yes.
ripples, but more
Yeah.
like a heat haze.
Yeah, but you see, the first experience of the elemental world is always movement. And some experience it very definitely as a left to right, right to left movement, or up down movement, or this third direction. That is a little advanced, but most experience that things start to move. Maybe the best picture of that is a warm summer day when you look at the asphalt, sort of in the distance, and you see everything moves over the asphalt. The heat is moving. That is what many can see. That is some sort of movement, or that's also why it is so beautiful to look at the sea in the sunlight. You see the ripples. It is so beautiful. And because I think that reminds us what we subconsciously know, as we all actually have passed the threshold subconsciously, that is what we feel spiritual. The sea, if a house have a view to the sea, you know, it costs $1 million more only for the sea view. So if that is what you describe, that is the first experience of the elemental world. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Anna-Marie.
Yeah, thank you. I have a completely different experience. So I have been hesitating sharing it, but it's not visual and it's not tiring at all. If I, for example, are with a tree, I stay with it and it feels like it's all movement. It's not a visual movement in front of my eyes. It's the seeing that is felt. And it's felt like all movement, and then when I stay with that, enter into that more, it feels more like it becomes a musicality experience or musical experience. It's almost like the tree is the music, and I live that music. it feels like I'm living the music as being in a concert or something, and then feeling that musicality of dynamic and ascending. And it just feels like that a musical experience, so it's not visual either. And it feels really invigorating. And also it feels like being in a church almost. I mean, it's such reference, such joy. And
But then can I have a question for you? Have you done this exercise much? You have done it for years, haven't you?
Yes, but,
Yes.
but yeah.
Yes. And you see, what I describe is the beginning. In the beginning, everybody gets tired. But after a while, it is the opposite. You get invigorated by it. You get the energy. You that is more like you describe. So this is actually a forthcoming level. Forthcoming, also a more advanced level. You have been training this for a long time, more or less conscious. And then this description fits very well that. And what you have to do then is what I say to all the others, because you stop there, you listen to the music, you stop there, you feel like in the church or whatever. You also then have to progress, go on deeper, because we want to reach eventually Christ.
Thank you.
Okay, Corolla.
Hi, Ari. I was trying it with the sun several times, and I don't know if that's the wrong thing to do, but I saw
the sun is huge, you know. That's not a beginner's item, sort of.
Well, it was just the best thing that I could do. It was because it's at sunset. It's always at sunset, and I see the rays streaming at me, but it's not. It's everything is moving. It's these tiny little. I can't describe what they are, but it's almost like just an atom, and there are millions and millions and millions of them.
Ooh.
And they come right towards me to my heart, and it expands my heart, and I want to go out there, but then I think, oh, I'm not supposed to look at it. Yeah.
What you describe here is the first experience in the second realm. What this woman just before you described was in the middle of the third realm.
Okay.
And what you describe is over the threshold to the second realm.
Wow. Okay, so can I just go further?
That is what I say to everybody.
Okay.
You can go further and further and further and further. You are just 1,000th part of your journey now.
Okay.
And the journey is actually never ending. It's a never ending story in the spiritual world to go into that. But we have sort of to go first through the elemental. And then when we reach the threshold, after you go further, you will come to a new threshold. And then you will enter the first elemental realm. And that is very important to know. There's one really important, two maybe important things to know about the first realm, because you could easily go there quite soon. And that is in the third and in the second, you have a sense of direction. You have a certain sense of that is forward, that is right, that is left. But when you come to the first, there is no direction.
Okay.
So some may be a little scared, not scared, but cautious about that. But it is like you go in the dark room. You have to you start there and you know the door is that way, and then you just, okay, you go that way through the dark. And then you just, there is the wall. Yeah, there is a door. You cannot see, because in the first realm, that is the Asuric realm, that is, I don't really know how to explain it, because it is not dark, but still there is no direction. So I cannot, I have no good words to explain that, because it is quite strange. You know you're going there, but there is no direction. You know the direction, but there is no direction. So that is what you must do there.
Okay, that's good to know, because
then when you reach the next threshold, then you get help, because then you meet the guardian of the threshold, which is an archangel.
wow, okay, well, I'm gonna try.
Yes, very good, very good.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, Petra is next.
Hi, Ari. Good to meet you. I appreciate your books. I especially like this one. It revealed a lot about my past. So, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. And do you have a question?
I'd like to bring up a fear. It wasn't like when it manifested. It wasn't actually when I was doing the exercise, but I think it definitely related. Where I was chopping wood outside in the night, in the evening when it was dark here, and I felt a tunnel, a portal open behind me. Like I didn't have to look at it; I already saw it behind me. And then scared me. And then that night I had the dream where it was like made up, like an image from my memory was used to portray a person to guide me across the death, and the death threshold. So it's the fear of death basically, because I felt like I saw a tunnel, but it was very dingy and stuff, so something was, it seemed like something was after me, do you have any
you should
deal with that?
You should not, this is at the side of what we are doing. This is something you should keep away from. This is something, just ignore this. You have, ignore these tunnels who opens. They are not to be played with. You keep away from that.
One more question
Just
about
follow the exercises like I have described or Steiner have described, and don't go into what you just now described. That is more the demonic part of the elemental world.
Yes. One more question.
And keep away from that until you are strong enough. Then you can meet that maybe.
It seems to be an ongoing issue. Like I've been, involved in the spiritual since the 70s. So the way to get in there, like I seem to use the more of the method of separating the thinking, feeling, and willing, because it happens naturally. So somehow focusing, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm sort of doing that, and that's how I get in. So can you say something about that? Is that the valid way to do it?
I think you should, and it is important for you to stick to the description at this point. Don't do too much is what you describe. You have a tendency for other parts of the elemental world that you should not go. Okay.
Yes.
Just do the description.
Oh, maybe one more thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I seem to have this, what I would call a psychic screen in my
Yes.
left eye. It was put there by a Navy SEAL who was very adept last summer, but now it's affecting my vision for one thing. You know, where it sort of allows me to, when I focus on something, it tells me whether it's dark or light, and then there's other stuff going on. So, do you know anything about that?
I will just repeat, stay out of that.
Okay. Okay,
are,
thank you, Ari.
you can go on a little wrong path. You have to do the fading into thing with your will, with your consciousness, and do only that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Cautious.
Thank you so much.
You must be cautious.
I know.
Yes.
But
Thank you so much.
I'm determined.
Yeah, thank you. So Claire, now, Claire.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm a little bit shy to speak in a big group like this, but I'll just try it.
It's only 79.
Anyway, Ara, I appreciate all your fun and all your great 60s and 70s, which is my period. I have a question because I came quite a long way on the other path through meditation and prayer in the kind of inward experience, you know, where I can experience myself on the other side of the threshold in my prayer place. Does this conflict with that way, or can I do both? I mean, after these exercises, can I go into my regular meditation practice and do the same, or am I crossing two paths, one with the other?
No, and that is, you will both, and Steiner, Rudolf Steiner made a point out of that. He said, in the not too far future, the inner and the outer, they merge. And when you go what I described the Nordic, you will end up in the prayer path. So, yeah, so it does not exclude each other at all. And you can combine it. You can try use equal time on both and then see it brings you different paths, but you will merge, and then I think you will then be actually more prepared than only one. Yes, very good, thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's important. I just, you know, I feel myself right there before the door when I do the exercises. Mainly I've been doing it with candle. You know, but I had experiences in my past many years ago of, you know, the dead following me, and also looking into beings' faces where I knew they were angelic beings, but with no love for humanity. And that was a shock, and it was a fear experience. I mean, I think I'm better prepared now, years later, because many years have passed.
Did you
but
say
obviously,
did you say that you met angelic beings who had no compassion for humanity?
Yes, I did. I looked right into the face of one. It looked right at me.
So that were the adversarial beings?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that was many years ago. I mean, I feel a lot stronger now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's part of the hesitation sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that I know that this is going to be there again.
You will meet them.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, anybody else?
So one more, and then I will say something at the end. There were one more, I think. C, the famous C, has raised her hand, his or her.
Claire. So Claire, he just spoke.
Okay.
So we need, okay, last question, dear friends, to R, and we will come back to main course of presentation.
Yes, you are on.
Thank you, are very interesting, very inspiring. It's just a question. You have spoken about fear, hate, and doubt, and this reminded me of the first lesson of the spiritual school.
Yes.
Do you have to say something about the connection with that lesson?
No, it is that is this. It is equal in the Mikael school and in what I call the Nordic school. That is the hindrances of spiritual development. So that is, I cannot actually, that is what I say about that. And this is that is part of the three animals on the threshold that we have to master. We have to not let us be put back by these feelings. That is what I have to say. Or do you have any additional question for that?
No, thank you.
But
No,
it is
just think.
exactly the same as in the Mikael school, yes.
I just think that studying that first lesson would go into the direction you were speaking. Maybe we could have some inspiration from it in parallel to your exercises.
Yes, absolutely. So, I am very pleased with what I have heard, and several of you in this, I call this a group, are on the right path, except one who had a tendency to go somewhere else, which is very important not to do. And there is only one answer to all. Everybody actually stopped up and observed or thought, or it's like you go for a walk and you see a beautiful sunrise or sunset, you stop and you watch. You see an animal, you stop and you watch. That is very, very normal. But on this path, if you are going to go a path, you can stop, of course, but you must not be stopping. Stand there. You have to continue. And then you will reach something that you will experience. Oh, yes, this is of great value. And that is all the time. I think Steiner said one time that when you are traveling or experience the spiritual world, you cannot stop. If you stop, you are sort of stuck. You have all the time to move. And when you continue the day after, it is somehow also a little changed. In the spiritual world, nothing repeats itself. So when you have seen this or that, this will be different the next time because you have taken a step. So with that in mind, I think it's quite clear what you all must do. You must continue to move, and you must do this every day, and you start from where you stopped. That is the lesson for the next 2 months. It's not too difficult, and I try to do it very pedagogically now. And then in 2 months, we will discuss what you have seen in the second realm. The third realm is the nature beings, the elemental beings of the physical phenomena, the trees, the flowers, the flame, the colors. They have shape, they have a certain beauty. When you come to the second realm, the beauty is gone. That is absolutely no beauty. Like when you go from Luciferic to the Ahrimanic, you go from a beautiful Lucifer, not necessarily beautiful, but not ugly, to Ahriman, who is quite ugly. And then you go on to the Asuric beings, who are not beautiful and not ugly, but what we say in Norway, gruesome. That's a word that comes from the Vikings, because they might be gruesome. So they are gruesome. In Norwegian, gruesome. And I guess nobody will get much further until next time, if not. But then it's possible, and we will discuss that then next time. I think that is what I will complete or end this workshop with today. Shall we find a date immediately? You think?
Yes. Let's open our calendar. And hopefully, again, it's if it will be Saturday, it will be the best because people are available.
Yeah. So March. Yes, 18th of March I can do.
Okay. It's a little less than 2 months, but I think it's sufficient.
Yeah, or I have to go to the
It can be April 1st too. I think it's good date.
No, it will be too long. Then it's 29th of April is the next Saturday I can. So 18th of March or 29th of April.
March, of course.
Okay.
March 18th will work. Yeah. So at the same time, 11 o'clock for US folks and 6 o'clock for Norwegians.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so what are we gonna do now? So just finishing, or it's more questions? Yeah, I'd like to just, okay, it's a question from Yuri from St. Petersburg, Russia, and Penelope. So it's just a little announcement. I have in form of PDF an article from R, and for another person. What is his name, Ari? I forget.
It's Glenn Charles.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and they are good articles. So please reply to me, and I will just forward it to you as attachment. I think it covers a lot of information, and it's answering a lot of questions from you about Northern Pass, for example.
And Glenn Charles show that this method of merging is actually incorporated in the philosophy of freedom, or the philosophy of spiritual experience, spiritual investigation.
Right. Yeah, he's very scientific. I think it's like 4 or 5 parts of article.
Yeah.
So with many aspects.
Yeah.
But we have a question, and some people ask me via email. It's about references about closing of path of 19 lessons. So, and you mentioned in your article, this is a couple of Kaiserlings, right? If I'm right. And my question is, did they have post-mortal experience and conversation of Steiner, or it was like real one?
No, Steiner, this is mainly gathered in the book, the Leidenweg, Rudolf Steiner's Leidenweg in German. That means the path of suffering of Rudolf Steiner, and the author, he say, if Steiner had only said it once or twice, I wouldn't have done this or written this, but he said it to several friends and also 2 close friends after his death. That is Johann Kaiserling and Graf Polter Polter.
Polterhoditz, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That, and he said in the spring of 24, then he was quite a little frustrated, and he said, if we, my friends, followers, anthroposophists, don't walk this path until autumn, it will be closed. And then he again said in September or October, nobody has been able to walk the path, so it is closed. So it is definitely a path, and this path that was actually based on the 19 lessons seemed to be too difficult for Steiner's followers at that time. And for me, when I read this, it was so obvious, because if they had been able to walk this path, they would bring reports of changes back. And almost nobody do that, except those who walk their own path, like me, for instance. Not their own, but this more, you might say, modern paths through the elemental world.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's why I wrote this article and say that the 19 lessons is a knowledge, is a huge knowledge, is a highly elevated knowledge, a very lofty knowledge, but it is no longer a path. And it seems to me, and now I just will do a personal opinion, that young people today, they want to experience something. They don't want to just be put full of knowledge. That is why I think this lack of new young people into the anthroposophic society or path, the anthroposophic movement, if they had been put into training like we have discussed tonight and started to experience certain things, then they would continue. But when they are just put to read very difficult subjects, we lose them. That is my opinion.
Well, I think it's very much true, because people looking for something actual, yes, I mean, not only theoretical knowledge, but, practice. This is exactly what you're probably missing in the society. So people not treating society as a school anymore, like, practical school.
Yeah.
So in terms of first-class lesson too, it's...
Yeah. And those who experienced Steiner, they saw they experienced something. And in agriculture and all this, and today it is no more experiences or less experiences. That's why I think what we do here is very important.
Yeah, because in first class, for example, I would expect some lessons like you do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like in all details, maybe sometimes funny details, but mistakes, but something which is actually can be processed and, and fixed. Yeah, thank you so much for doing. We have two people with raised hands. One is Yuri, my friend from St. Petersburg, Russia. By the way, also Nordic area, because it's practically, it belongs to maybe Finland or, yeah. So can we do this, or like two people with questions?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, okay, Yuri, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ara, for your presentation. Before I ask my question, I got a little question first. Have you attended all the class lessons and you heard the voice of the speaker in the real life? Have you attended?
I have actually been a class holder myself.
I mean, have you heard from the speaker the lessons, the first class lessons through your ears?
Oh yes, many times.
Many
I've
times.
been a member for 30 years, I think.
When you heard about the lesser guardian of the threshold and the greater guardian of threshold, what have you experienced during the lessons? It is my little question, but my main question is whether you distinguish between what can be called the primary spirits and the elementary beings, because the elementary beings, they are of the sub-nature, sub-physical nature. They like in minus going downwards. And the primary spirits, they are connected to the hierarchies like angels, archangels, archai. Archai are they are having their offsprings in the mineral world, archangels in the plant world, and angels in the animal world. And I wonder whether you distinguish these kingdoms of primary spirits from the elementary beings, which don't have what one call ego or I principle. Because when you talk about these three grades, how do you relate them to what we know as the four types of elementary beings: gnomes, Andeans, salamanders, sylphs, and salamanders? How do you relate these three grades, what you mentioned?
Well,
So,
that was
sorry,
a
big question.
It was a very big question.
Yes, first question, the main one,
yeah,
whether you distinguish between the primary spirits who have they come from the macrocosmic spiritual beings, what we call the proper, or those who represent the proper spiritual world, like higher Devakan, lower Devakan, and astral world. And whether you distinguish between these and those elementary beings which don't have spirits in them.
Now I have this question to myself. What you bring up here is, shall I be pedagogic or should I answer? Because this is so much further on this way, yes, this way lead to both the angelic worlds, even to the archaic world, to the higher Devakan, to several things, but that is much later on this. So I try to describe the sort of the elemental world that is sort of where you have to start to go through, and then you will meet all these things you mentioned. So to be pedagogic, this question is far, far too advanced at this stage, I would say. But you will meet all these things through this, on this path.
Right. And what about your experience when you heard about the lesser guardian and the greater guardian of the threshold? Yes. Would you tell us, please?
Yeah, I said that when you have passed the Asuric domain, then you will meet a archangel guardian, which is calls himself Vidar. And after that, you meet Christ, which might be considered the greater guardian, and Vidar the lesser, or a guardian. The path of the 19 lessons, as Steiner described it, is not the same as the Nordic path, but they merge later at a certain time. But they are not the same in the beginning. That's why this Mikael way, or the 19-hour, 19-lesson way, is, it seems to me, too difficult. Otherwise, Steiner's friends, his contemporaries, would have been able to walk it. But according to Steiner's own words, nobody could.
And how do you relate these four types of elemental beings with your three grades?
You meet them in the third realm.
All four of them.
You meet in the third realm, yes. In the third realm, there are, you might say, four elements, like they relate to these four types of beings, gnomes, sylphs, and so on. And in the second realm, there are about 8 or 9 elements. And in the first realm, there are about 18 elements.
Are these 18 higher than those four?
I wouldn't say higher or lower. They are just a bigger number.
I mean, in terms of their level of consciousness, of their development.
Well, Steiner said that in this first realm, you have the Asuric beings, which are in relation to the archai. So you might say the spirits of birth or death, he will also say. So you might say that they are higher. Yes. At least in some way.
It's very interesting. I look forward to hearing about this, what you said, higher than gnomes,
oh yeah,
Andeans, seals, and salamanders.
The point is, my friend Yuri, you have to go there yourself and see it. That is what I want. I want you all to go there, not listen to me.
Well, honestly speaking, in my childhood, I could see that it's not difficult for anyone, but something restrained me from my childhood going this. But anthroposophy teaches us first to work with our doppelganger, with our human double. Otherwise, we get into troubles and could become a psychiatric patient.
Yes.
So to avoid this, I choose this another path, which first class, this free school of higher school of spiritual science. It gives you another path, which is more safe in my view. But those people who are prepared to go what you describe, probably this is their path, their choice.
Good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yuri. So I see Penelope still waiting. Penelope, please unmute your machine and go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Ari, I have spent most of my life on a different path, a Gnostic path, which took me into intensive breathing, and eventually it did bring me to an experience of the Christ. However, I got into a lot of trouble after that and spent many years searching for something that actually felt right. And as soon as I heard you, I knew that this was what I've been waiting for about 40 years. Now, trying to switch across, I'm feeling like a kindergarten level coming down from university, starting fresh all over again. I'm having two major problems, and I was wondering if you could give me any advice on them. The first thing is that all of my previous practice was with eyes shut, so I gather that was in a path. And now I find that it's so difficult to keep my eyes open and get rid of the physical world because it insists on still being there. And the second thing is a question of will and focus. Is it really a question of one-pointed will and intensive concentration, or have I got that a bit wrong?
No, you are right. I don't have any advices further than I already have been giving, actually. Well, I have described this merging, and you read merging, conscious merging with your eyes open. And you, in a way, float into this, what you merge into, you float into it. And there you have to push. And you use your will and you want to go further. That is actually the whole thing. You read that lecture from Helsinki, 3rd of April 12. It describes it very well. And according to Glenn Charles, the philosophy of freedom also, it described the same procedure.
Thank you. And I have a very quick question. I hope it's not frivolous. Could you tell me what Australian elementals look like?
No, I don't want to do that. I want you to see them yourself. Because if I say it, you are sort of preconceived, pre-perceived. Yes. And I don't, you see, my whole mission, what I feel is not to give, well, in my books, I give a lot of details and blah, blah, blah. But the important today is that many people as possible, especially anthroposophists, go into this spiritual world themselves and see. So I shouldn't describe too much. That is not pedagogic.
Thank you.
Okay, dear friends, thank you so much. Ari, so what do you feel? So shall we just round our session?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. Once again, thank you so much for guiding us. And so we will see you again on March 18th. Please, dear friends, mark your calendars. And in terms of your article and article of Glenn Charles, so I will send to the group who participated in this last workshop. So if it's okay. Yes, thank you so much. Please feel free, unmute your machines and say thank you to R. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Ari
Thank you
and
so much.
Andre. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Awesome. That video, right?
Yeah, it's recorded, so you will find the video on our website, or just shoot me email.
I wasn't gonna say anything. Oops, bye, Ari, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Andre.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.